Okay. I didn't hear. You remember the voice where she says the recording has started? Didn't happen this time. So this is what we're doing. Page 44. Split the sack. Okay, so again, like last time, right? Remember, we're going to work on these poems together. You're going to teach me, I'm going to teach you. And probably will be much more interesting if you guys participate than if I just do the lecture on this particular text, right? Because again, this is, like I told you last time, this is wisdom literature. This is meant to unlock each one of us in a different way. Each one of us is seeing different things. Each one of us is accessing different pearls of wisdom. So if we put them all together, it's going to be much more interesting. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to read, and then I'll just open the floor, and you guys will tell me what you think it means. I'll say a few words, and we'll go like this, step by step. All right. First line, page 44. Why does the soul not fly when it hears the call? Why does a fish gasping on land but near the water not move back into the sea? I skip a little bit. We are out of our cages with our wings spread, yet we do not lift off. Okay, so here we have two animals. We have a bird, we have a fish, and they're acting really weird, right? The bird is out of its cage, it has wings, and yet it's not flying, right? It's acting very unlike itself, right? The fish is on the land dying. The water is right next to the fish, and the fish is not going back into the water. And so what Rumi is saying here is that in many ways we are like that bird and we are like that fish. So can you explain to me how we look like that bird when it comes to love, and how we also look like that fish? See if you can recognize yourselves in that bird and in that fish. Tell me. Yes. What? Okay, right, so we are so close to, right, getting somewhere. Okay, that could be one way, right, that we get, we get somehow blocked and we don't finish. That's very common. Very good. Klein?
Scared to make the first step.
Okay, very good, right? There's element of fear, but is it justified, this fear? If you look at the bird who is afraid of flying, would you think the bird is stupid and silly to be afraid of flying? And the fish, that's the worst one. The fish is dying, right? And yet it is fearful to go back in the water. How are we like that fish? Why, in other words, we fear, but should we fear? I guess that's the question. Should we be fearful when you compare ourselves to should the fish be fearful of water? I guess I'll ask you that. Start like that. Should the fish be afraid of water? No. Okay, why? I mean, the water is kind of, it's treacherous. There's a lot of bigger fish in there, Why isn't the fish afraid of water? Even though it's kind of dangerous, it's very vast, anything could happen, and yet the fish has no reason to be afraid of the water. Why is that?
That's like their home. The water is like the fish's home.
Okay, very good. It's their element, right? The earth, they're dying. It's not their element. So likewise, right? The poem is saying love is our element. Yes, it's very vast. Yes, we don't know where it's going. Yes, it can be treacherous, but it's our natural element. This is where we are most fully ourselves. This is where our wings can spread. This is where, right, our gills, right, or our little, I don't know, what are those called? Those little things that the fish used to swim. Huh?
Flippers.
Oh. Flippers? Really?
Fins.
Fins. Flippers, I was like, this is where our fins, right, can be used. This is, right, so what the poem is saying is that we are so silly when we are afraid to enter love, thinking that it will hurt us or damage us or, make us uncomfortable, when in fact we are dying on the land, right? And our natural element is really love. Even though it's vast and unpredictable and there are bigger fish in there, it is still our natural element. It's where we will be most fully ourselves, right? So we need never be afraid of love, because that is really where we fully blossom into our true selves, right? Whereas as long as we stay on the land, what will happen to the fish if it stays on the land? It'll die, right? And many of us, we want comfort, but we don't know how slowly we are withering away, right? We don't even realize. We prefer our comfort zone. We don't want to take any risks, yet something in us is not blossoming. Something in us is withering when we do that, right? So an invitation to not be afraid of love, because love is really where we are most ourselves, where we are really becoming our true selves. Okay, good. Now, here's a good one. We keep collecting rocks and broken bits of pottery like children, pretending they are merchants. Okay, so let me give you the visual of what's happening here. This is kids who are playing a game where you're trading stuff. How many of you played that when you were younger? Played a game where you were trading them. What were you trading?
Anything around me.
Oh, anything around you. Okay. Anybody were trading, I don't know, like cards or stamps or whatever? What were you guys trading? What is this generation trading?
Just silly bands.
The what?
Yeah. Like little like bracelets.
Oh, that's cute. Okay, I like that. I like that. Anybody else was trading stuff?
Oh, like we would trade like our snacks in the cafeteria.
Okay,
like,
trade the
you know,
snacks.
A cookie for
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you get this is these kinds of kids, right? Trading snacks, trading little bracelets. And so when you're trading and you give your what you need to give, right? Your little bracelet, what do you expect in return? Yeah, right? If I'm going to give you a snack, I better get a snack back. Right? If I'm going to give you a little cute bracelet, I better get something. Right? So this is kids playing this game and trading stuff, right? And Rumi is saying, very often when we love, we are just like these kids in a negative sort of way. In other words, we are still at that level. What does he mean? That as lovers, we often look like these kids trading little trinkets. Yes.
So when we love someone, we expect the same thing back, instead of just loving to love for the sake of it.
Right, very good, right? Very often, one of the issues, right, that Rumi is saying we are missing out when we do this is we love in order to get some love in return. And if we're not getting what we're investing, right, for us it's over, game over, right? Business, this transaction is over, right? Very often we see love as a transaction, as a business arrangement, right? I give you this and I expect you to give me that. And if you don't give me that, we're done here, right? And Rumi is saying, okay, that's the smart way, right? That's the business way, but you're missing out on a whole depth of love that you will never experience if you come into the situation like this, right? You will never experience how deeply you are capable of loving if you're just into this give or take, right? There is a higher level of love, right, that Rumi is talking about throughout the text. There is a deeper level of loving, which goes deeper than the business transaction, right? So he's saying, let us not enter the love like a transaction, right? We need to learn to love more deeply than that. That's the invitation, right, that he's giving us. And it's not easy, right? Anything that Rumi is writing is catastrophic, really, if you put it to use. This is already, surfing on a big wave or snowboarding up the hardest hill. You guys don't snowboard. This is on New York. No mountains here. All right. I don't snowboard either, just to clarify. So this is kind of like, for me, it's the most treacherous sport that exists, right? So any sport like that where you're like, have to go down something, right? It's scary. Rumi is that kind of writer where he's taking you to heights and depths that you don't want to be in. And yet, this is part of the love experience, right? He's inviting us to heights and to depths that we are afraid of, and yet he's saying once you overcome that fear, you will truly know what love is in its highest and in its lowest, right? Okay, so invitation to go deeper than the business transaction. Let's continue. So he continues, right? Same idea now, still with the children metaphor. We should split the sack of this culture and stick our heads out. Look around, leave your childhood. Okay, so let's stop briefly to understand the metaphor. What is this sack that we have to split? What is he alluding to? What experience is he alluding to that we've all been through? We've all split a sack in our lifetimes. What sack is that? Guzman? Huh? Yes, absolutely. Birth. He's talking about birth. The placenta is the sack that we have split out of, right? And so he's saying here, in love, we are very much often, when it comes to love, like little babies in the womb. And we don't want to leave the womb, right? And he's saying, again, look how silly this is. Imagine the baby's in the womb, right? And it's time to go out. And the baby's like, I'm good here. What's going on? No, I'm happy. I was happy, Everything was good. I was warm. My mother was putting on Mozart, right? So I could fall asleep. I was getting all these nutrients, sometimes a little weird nutrients, but in general, good nutrients. I don't want to leave. Imagine the baby doesn't want to leave the womb. What will happen to the baby? You know, I don't know. I just realized I'm asking this question. I really don't know. Medical people? Will it die? I mean,
I think it would probably kill the mother.
It would kill the mother.
First.
Okay.
It'll get too big.
It's like I'm stopping in my tracks. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen to this damn baby if it stays in the womb. Okay, let's imagine that something catastrophic probably will occur, which will involve the death of the mother for sure, and the death and the subsequent death of the baby, right? We are like this. We don't want to leave the womb, but in doing so, we are in a way missing out on life, basically, right? If the baby stays in the womb, it's missing out on everything else, but it's always hard to leave the womb, right? Imagine the baby. I don't know if you remember your birth, but I feel like I remember mine. Here you are, all, you're doing good, you're kind of floating, and all of a sudden, contraction, paf! You're like, whoa, what's happening? What is this, right? And then all of a sudden, you start to, right, you get upside down. Baby actually has to tip upside down. Tips upside down, you're like, it's the end, it's over, right? You're thinking it's the end of your life, it's been good, bye everybody, right? And now you're being pushed through this narrow entry, and there is like huge contraction squeezing your body. I mean, imagine the baby. For the baby, it's finished, it's over, it's the end, right? The baby probably is going through death right now, psychologically. And once the baby finally out, right, all of a sudden the baby realized what looked like, felt like death actually was a birth, right? This is love. Very often, what will feel like a death is actually a birth. Leaving your comfort zone and entering into a new situation with a partner who is sometimes challenging, right, will very often feel like a kind of death of who you used to be, right? You have to shed a few things, right? But it's actually a birth. That's what he's saying. We should split the sack and stick our heads out, right? That's one way to understand it. Now, there's some other ways to understand it. I use it like comfort zone, but he says here, split the sack of the culture. Tell me how in love we are often required to split the sack of our culture. Tell me a little bit about that. How many of you dated people who were not from your culture? 1, 2, 3. How'd that go? How did your parents and family react to this new person, right? What is the text telling us about splitting the sack of the culture in order to find love? Yes.
Maybe like how you say like get out of our comfort zone, but like to embrace other choices.
Okay, very good, right? Very often the love will take you not only beyond your personal comfort zone, but beyond the comfort zone you were educated in, sometimes beyond your religion, beyond your ethnicity, beyond your race, certainly beyond, often, sometimes beyond your gender, right? Beyond your culture, right? And so in a way, right, the love is asking us very often, you need to leave behind, right, what you used to be, and you need to maybe build a new identity with your beloved, right? It's a loss of identity, but it's also a birth of a new identity, right? That's how it can be seen, right? Very good. And then finally, look around, leave your childhood. Okay, so now he's asking us to leave our childhood, meaning childhood is not good. So how is childhood, what's the bad thing about being a child? I know children are supposed to be cute, but for those of you who had younger siblings, you know about, the perversity of children. What is wrong with children? Yes, Stab. What? They're annoying. Why are they annoying? Oh, they're so needy. Okay. Okay.
I have 3 older siblings, so it's like
Yeah, younger or older?
older.
So you're the needy one.
Me?
Who? I'm
I'm
talking.
the oldest.
Oh,
So
so
I had to take
who
care
are
of
these
them.
children? Oh, they're the children, the older ones.
No, I'm the oldest sibling.
Ah, you're the oldest, so you're dealing with all these younger neediness. Okay, needy, good. We'll come back to that. What else is wrong with children?
They don't understand what life actually is.
Is that bad?
I mean, it could be sometimes.
Why?
I don't know, because, like, I guess they see things in a different way, which isn't bad all the time.
Yes.
But, like, also they don't know what life could be, like, in a bad way.
Oh, but is that a bad thing not to know
mean?
It feels like an innocent thing, but I'm looking at the perversity. Neediness is getting there. This is good, but that they're naive, is that the problem? That bothers you?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Anybody else have some grudge against children?
Immaturity.
How so? What do you mean by that?
They're kind of egocentric.
Egocentric. Children are very egocentric, right? Everything's supposed to revolve around them. He's laughing over there. Anything else? So selfish, needy, naive. What else? This is your moment. If you're an older sibling, this is your moment to get it all out. Okay. Annoying. Okay, back to annoying. Okay, now now we've put it all on the table. Actually, Rumi is saying a lot of us, when we enter love, we're just like that. We're needy, we're annoying, we're naive. What's the last one? Oh, egocentric, right? This is us, most of us. When we start loving, we come in super needy, right? We want the lover to take care of us, and if they don't take care of us, it's a big problem, right? We are clingy, we are egocentric, right? We think that the beloved is supposed to serve us somehow, and if he stops serving us, then it's a big problem again. We are surprised, we are shocked, right? And Rumi is saying, grow up, right? Love is not, this is not, of course, there's an element, well, actually, no, I'm going to actually go very far and say, love is not there to fulfill your needs. That was your parents. If you missed that, suck it up, right? When it comes to the beloved, they're not supposed to be your mom. They're not supposed to be your dad. And many of us, we come in the relationship because maybe we didn't have a proper mom or a proper dad, and we want that now. But actually, that's not how it works, right? You need to find your mom elsewhere and your dad elsewhere, not in your beloved. Your beloved is not there to nurture you. Beloved is there to challenge you. Let's just get that in our heads, and we'll do much better, right? We often come in the relationship, we want mom, right? We want a mother to be always there, always, doing this, doing that, or a father, right, to be supporting us, providing for us, and so forth. Many of us come with this twisted view that the beloved is there to take care of us, when actually the beloved is there to challenge you, right? This is mature love. When you're ready to enter love for the sake of a challenge, for the sake of growing up, for the sake of maturing, for the sake of loving more deeply, and not going in there for the sake of being cuddled, right? You're ready. You're ready to leave your childhood, right? Many of us, we go into the love like little children, right? And end up with all of these issues. So Rumi really, it's easy to read, but it's really hard to do, right? He's actually really hardcore, right? It's all flowery speech, right? Very nice, pretty language, but actually to really do it, it takes a lot of grit, right? To go and do some of what he's talking about. It takes a lot of courage and grit to actually love as an adult and not as a child, right? So this is really the first poem, right, that we're looking at. Okay, now I'm going to skip to the next one because this is where I want to do today our forgiveness workshop. This is very important. If you do not know how to forgive, forget about ever trying to love. It's not going to happen. It's a basic skill, right? But first, let's go in the beginning a little bit. Okay, wait, no expectations, sorry. Where's that?
76.
Thank you. Okay, no expectations. Woo, my favorite. Okay. I learn from this one every time I read it. All right, let's skip a little bit to the second paragraph. Be foolishly in love because love is all there is. Okay, this is again terrible advice, right? Be foolishly in love. What is he saying? What is he saying? And it does sound horrible. What do you mean be foolishly in love? Shouldn't I be cautious and prudent? And shouldn't I, be smart about it? Shouldn't I, be careful or wise? He's like, don't be wise, be foolish. What does this mean? What is he trying to say? Be foolishly in love. What's his point? What does it mean to be a fool in love? Yes, Goldblatt. Okay. Yes, good. That's one way to put it. Okay, so we can write this down, right? Don't overthink, right? Don't be there trying to control everything in your mind, right? Remember, we need to be the flock, not the shepherd, right? So often we overthink. Why we overthink? Because we want to control. Here, it's an invitation to just go where it goes. Very good. Another way to, yes, Carrie.
I feel like
Okay, good. Be reckless, right? This is the woman in the Song of Songs. She's foolishly in love, poor girl. I feel for her each time I read the text, right? I'm like, my heart, right? Be foolish. In other words, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make the wrong move, right? Don't be afraid to take a wrong turn or to be with the wrong person, because in any case, right, this is all you're going to at least, right? This is how we learn. This is how we learn. By the way, don't beat yourselves up if you made a mistake, because that was the best you could do at the time. Right? That's how I tell myself, right? That's what I tell myself. When I look back on relationships where it's like, what was I thinking? Right? It's like, well, at the time I was doing my best, right? This was not intentional. So this is right have grace for yourself that you didn't have the knowledge that you have now, and that's how you actually got the knowledge that you have now, right? So very good, Carrie. Osorio, you want to add to be foolishly in love?
Um, well, I just thought of it as when you're cautious about something, you're like 1 foot in, 1 foot out the door, kind
Very
of
nice.
ready to like leave if you have to.
Yes, excellent.
And so when you're foolishly in love, you're all in.
Okay, very good.
You know, you jump in the deep end and you're kind of like,
Yes.
oh, well, I might drown, but hey, I'm here.
Very good, right? You're not afraid to waste time. You're not afraid to waste your love, right? Very often, you're right. We have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And we're like, okay, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. We're on the fence, right? Because we're afraid of doing something stupid, right? So we're on the fence. And Rumi's like, this is no. Either you're all out or all in. There's no fence, right? Be foolishly in love. Don't be afraid to put all your apples in the same basket. Remember, that's what the woman in the Song of Songs did, right? At one point when he's out there not knowing what he's doing, and she's like, okay, my beloved is mine and I'm his. She's putting all her apples in the same basket. She's thinking, I'm going to invest all of myself, right? Knowing that when it comes to love, right, you never lose on the investment. Because, and we'll talk about this when we do Kierkegaard, even if your beloved leaves, we're going to talk about this, you will have found a deeper way of loving. You will have developed skillful love. You will have become a more skillful, a more compassionate, a more generous lover yourself, right? So there's never, never any loss on the investment, because you might lose the lover, but you gain you, a deeper version, a better version of yourself, a more loving version of yourself. So that's why you can always go all in. There's never anything wasted. You always gain at least a deeper capacity for love, right? So that's good, very good. So let's continue. Now we're getting into the hardcore. Someone asks, but what is love? Answer, dissolving the will. Ooh, I hate that passage. That passage sounds so awful. What does he mean? That love is the dissolution of the will, the negation of the will. That sounds terrible. Sounds like you're being a pushover now. What is love? Become a pushover. Is that what he's saying? Become a victim. What is he saying when he says, what is love? Dissolving the will. Yes. Okay, so there we talked about this, right? Part of you needs to be contracted, or there is an element of sacrifice in all successful love stories, right? There's an element that you put yourself aside to make room for the other. So in a way, dissolving the will could mean, right? Sometimes you sacrifice for the sake of the other. Sometimes you set apart what you want for the sake of what they want. That's how you create intimacy, right? Very good. What else? What else? Who else has an idea on this notion of dissolving the will? Yes.
I said that like love leaves you vulnerable, so like vulnerable.
Yes.
So when it's like you have like the will to like put like a wall up, you can kind of like dissolve that, because you have to basically put yourself out.
Oh, I like that. Okay, very good, right? Love is the dissolution of all the walls, protective gear you have put around yourself, right? Love is vulnerability, so you dissolve, you dissolve this kind of protective layer. What else? What happens when? How is this dissolving the will not a dissolving of yourself? I guess I would ask that, because dissolving is not right. It seems like a whole thing. How is the dissolution of the will not the dissolving of the self ultimately? How is it actually protection of the self to dissolve the will? Okay, let me put it this way. One way to understand. So, oh, you want to add? Go ahead.
Well, I don't know. I guess I kind of think of the will as being related to the ego, which maybe he just means like dissolve that part of your ego.
Okay, very good, right? We can say that, right? The ego, there's the ego and the higher self, right? So when you're dissolving the will, what you're doing is dissolving the part of you that is about protecting you for the sake of the love. And I think one of you mentioned that already. So for example, whatever decision you're making, right? Whether it's to stay or to leave in a crisis, you always do it never from a place of fear, but from a place of love. That's the dissolution of the will. It's the dissolution of the ego part of you, which is always out to protect you, which is always out for number one, right? That part of you which is there like, hey, we matter, right? You are dissolving that for the sake of a higher way of making a decision. So I think we mentioned this before, right? Whatever you decide, if you're in a crisis and it's not going well and you don't know what to do and you're on the fence, should I leave, should I stay, right? You make sure you're making the decision from a place of love and not a place of fear. In other words, I'm not making this decision to protect myself. I'm making this decision because I feel this is what you need. This is the most loving thing to do for you right now, right? To stay or to leave. It depends on the situation, right? So here you're dissolving the part of you which wants to be safe, which wants to be protected for a higher law, right? There is a higher law than the law of self-protection. Most of us, we live on this earth, there's only one law, protecting myself, right? Here he's saying, dissolve that law. There's a higher law, loving the other, right? This law, you don't need protection, right? When you're thinking, what is the most loving thing to do at this moment, right? You're not thinking, you're not working according to the law of self-protection. You're working according to the law of love, which is a higher law, right? That might be one way to see it. Yes?
Are there some situations in which sometimes the most loving thing to do is for yourself and not so much for them? Or it could be for them, but like
yes,
maybe you
absolutely.
know, the most loving thing to do in that moment is to really take yourself out of that situation.
Yes, but you always do it for the sake of the relationship. So let's give you an example, right? This is a very good question. Suppose you're completely drained by this person and you're like, now you have like, you're developing physical symptoms, the stress, right? You have cancer now, whatever. Some people will give you that. So now you're really sick, right? And it's linked to whatever happened. Is this the truth? This is not far from the truth. It happens, right? So now you're like, wait, love would prescribe, of course, in a way that you stay with a person, but love, it means also that when you stay with a person, you exist, right? Love requires you. So if you're becoming disintegrated by the relationship, sometimes love will prescribe that you take a step back to heal, right? This is why sometimes separation is loving. Why? Not just for them, but you need to be fully healthy to be in the relationship, right? To love them. So yes, absolutely. Sometimes the most loving thing for the relationship is that I need to heal so I can love you, right? But you're always thinking first, what's the best thing for the relationship? And you realize, well, sometimes the best thing is I need to get out so I can heal, so that maybe then I can love you more properly or be able to, tell you what I need to tell you, and we can move forward. So yes, sometimes some of us become so overwhelmed, and this is sometimes in relationships where there's high toxicity, right? A lot of verbal abuse or physical abuse, and sometimes you need to step back because you are dissolving, right? It's not the dissolving of the will, it's dissolving of yourself, right? So sometimes, yes, the most loving thing for the relationship is for you to take a step back and heal, and then not necessarily cut the person off, but take a step back and heal, so that now I know what I should tell you, right? By the way, if it makes you feel better, even God divorced his own beloved. Did you know that? I will tell you. So I'm talking here about the biblical God, right? When you look, of course, the beloved of the biblical God is the people of Israel, right? He divorced them for 70 years. Did you know that he got so fed up with them? He's like, yo, you go into Babylon, I'm staying here, and we good, right? So this is the first exile, right? So the Hebrews were exiled to Babylon for 70 years, And this was a kind of an act where God is like, I can't deal with you anymore. We're separating, right? So even God, the God of the Judeo-Christian tradition, including Islam also, even God divorced his beloved. So not, therefore, we can also take some separation sometimes, right? When it's needed, when it's too toxic, when things have become too muddied. You know, sometimes it's very good to have some distance, perspective, right? And so forth. So I always reassure myself like that, with like, even God got a divorce, so we good. We can do this. But always, of course, for the sake of love, right? Whatever separation you're doing, you're always thinking, how do I do this so that there's more peace between us, right? And not less peace. Okay, good. Yeah, that one is a tough one. So let's go now. I want to do this forgiveness thing, so I want to take that time. Actually, let's do one more. No, let's not. Let's go to the forgiveness thing. Okay. So here, let's read the top of page 77. But this love path has no expectations, right? You're uneasy riding the body, dismount, travel lighter. Wings will be given. Okay, let's just stop on that briefly. What does it mean that love has no expectations? I mean, I went to a workshop once, relationships workshop, where it was all about how to express your expectations to your beloved, right? So I kept on thinking, you know, I probably shouldn't go to this workshop. I was hearing Rumi on my shoulder telling me, what, expectations? So what does it mean to have no expectations when you are in a relationship? Yes.
That there is no right way to love. Like everyone has their own story and like manner of loving. So you can't just be like, oh, there's like a textbook version of love I have to follow or anything like that. Like you have to be open for like mistakes and everything because like not everyone makes the same mistake.
Okay, very nice, right? Sometimes we come in the love and we have a set of expectations how they should love us based on our culture, right? So if you're Spanish, if you're Chinese, if you're, you know, Indian, whatever, you come in because you've seen this is how it's done, and now you're with this person and they're not loving you like that, and now you have questions, right? Here he is saying, be open to the specific way they will love you. By having expectations, oh, they should do this, they should do that, you are not seeing everything they're doing in their own, based on their own background, right? This is especially true of ethnic relationships, right? You have this, imagine you're Spanish and partner is Chinese, right? It's like two different worlds, right? So here you come and you expect this Chinese person to be Spanish with you. This is not happening. So now you don't feel loved, right? So it's saying, no, set aside your expectations, your cultural expectations of what love looks like, so that you can receive this very specific way that the person. So we miss out, right, on the ways our beloveds are loving us because we have all these expectations, what they should do, what it sounds like, what it should look like, and so forth, right? Good. Anybody else on the love? Yes, Karen. Okay, that too, right? Don't program how it should go, right? Go again with Rumi, always this notion of, you know, have the curiosity, the innocence to go with the flow. You don't know, right, where it's going to go. You don't have to control every move. Very good. Anybody else? Yes.
Sometimes we have like a rubric about like which boxes our partner's supposed to check off for us. They're supposed to check off every single box. They're supposed to be all of these things for us. When that's a lot to expect from one person, that's a lot to put on one person, the responsibility of being all these things for you. And if we just got rid of that and just accepted them for who they are and allowed them to first give us what it is that they have to offer, and then we can decide whether we can accept it or not.
Okay. Very
instead
good.
of having that.
Yes, having a two. How many of you did checklists on what you're looking for in your beloved? Anybody did do that? Mm-hmm. Those are good to a certain degree, but here's how I would nuance it, right? Have a checklist, yes, but have what is essential, and then what is inessential. This really helps for you to clarify. Essential, maybe we can do that at the end if we have some time, right? You write what is absolutely necessary, and then you write all the other stuff, which it's there, it's not there, it's okay. You can negotiate, right? It really helps because very often we want the inessential and then we are not tolerant. So when you do these checklists, it's good. It helps you focus. Aristophanes would be proud. It helps you locate your soulmate faster, right? But make sure you distinguish between what is essential to you and what is not so essential. Very good. Excellent. Okay, now here comes the passage which I will comment on. Be clear like a mirror, reflecting nothing. So I was puzzled with this for years. I was like, what do you mean? Like a mirror is always reflecting something. Right? That's what a mirror does, right? What's he talking about? I started to understand this when I read another philosopher, also Muslim, called Al-Ghazali. And he talks about the heart. And I think, are you in that class? No, you're not, but yeah. He talks about how the heart needs to be clear like a mirror in order to better reflect the divine light or something like that. I was like, okay, so now I start to see there's something going on here about the purification of the heart, right? So let's talk about this a little bit. I'm going to take a little detour now and do this. I believe this passage is talking about forgiveness. So I'm going to explain what I mean by forgiveness, and then you'll see that it really connects to what he's saying here about being clear like a mirror. So, little workshop 101, forgiveness 101. Let's take a detour and then come back to this quote, right? Because you will really understand clearly once I've done this little detour. So, forgiveness 101, most important skill of love. Okay. Forgiveness is a very ancient concept, predates Islam, predates Christianity. It's found in the Hebrew Bible, one of the first occurrences in the ancient world, right? And there are several words for forgiveness in the Hebrew Bible, but I will focus on one, which in the Hebrew is nasa, N-A-S-A, nasa. Okay, so learn this one Hebrew word, nasa. Literally, it actually means to carry. Okay, so forgiveness, apparently based on this very ancient word for forgiveness, there's an element of carrying involved. Okay, so let's see what that means, because that doesn't sound very good, like here I am carrying everything that people did to me. So we have to understand, what does it mean to carry the wrongs that people do to us? It sounds very stressful, personally, right? So let's see what it means. So let me ask you this to clarify. What is your first reaction when someone does you wrong? What's your first reaction with regards to them?
Anger.
Yes. Let me make it very graphic. Someone punches you in the face. What's your first reaction? Hopefully. Punch back. Right. This is our first reaction. If we don't punch back, we will go home and we will be filled with loathing and find, other ways to get back at that person. But the first reaction, human reaction, when someone does us wrong, we react and push it back in their face, right? We do this in two ways. Some of us do it externally right away. We tell them off, or we yell at them, or punch them, or some of us do it internally through resentment, anger, hatred, cutting them off forever, becoming cold-hearted, right? But in any case, most of us, the reaction, if not all of us, the reaction to being offended by someone is to push back, react, throw it back in their face, either externally or internally. You're like, still filled with anger and resentment and overcoming with loathing, right? Overflowing with loathing for that person. Okay. Now, what does it mean to carry instead of pushing back? What is the text telling us? Yes, Colado.
Actually, it kind of like reminded me of the saying, forgive but don't forget, because you can forgive a person for what they offended you, but you can also, when you forget about what happened, you don't like really learn from what happened. So, the saying is like saying, like, even if you are forgiving the person, it doesn't mean that you're forgetting what they did to you.
That's true, but you haven't defined forgiving yet. We're still trying to define it, right? Because we say we should forgive, we should forgive. What the hell does that mean? And how is it even possible when you're so angry, right? So most of us, we're told we should forgive, but we don't even know what it means, right? We don't even know how to do it. And what if they never ask for forgiveness? Should I forgive them? What if they do the unforgivable? Should I forgive them? You see what I mean? There's a lot of questions, right? So we need to really hone in, what does it mean to forgive? So going back, and then we'll come back to the forgetting, right? So let's go back to this notion. Our reaction is to react, push back. The biblical word for forgiveness says, no, you shall carry. So what does that mean? What is the text telling us? Karim. Okay, absolutely right. Instead of pushing back, you absorb. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. But for now, the forgiveness movement is the refusal to throw it back in their face. Instead of throwing it back in their face, you absorb it. So we're going to talk about how that works, right? But the main idea is here that forgiveness means that you choose not to throw the offense back at the person's face. You choose not to reflect what they did, right? You'll see here, we're coming soon to Rumi, right? You choose not to reflect back, either internally or externally. In other words, you choose not to let yourself become toxic by what has happened to you. Let me say that again. You have been hurt, but you don't have to become damaged by what has happened. Let me say that again. You have been hurt, but you don't have to become damaged, because what is damage? Damage is what you do with the pain, right? The pain will never damage you. The damage comes with what you do with the pain. Are you going to now be hateful with that pain? Are you going to be vengeful with that pain? Is that pain going to make you more cold-hearted? Is that pain going to make you into a hateful person? Is that pain going to incite you to revenge, right? That's when you begin to damage yourself. When you allow the pain to become toxic. When you allow the pain to become another offense. Are you following? You see what I'm saying? So, in other words, when someone offends you, to forgive simply means you offended me, but I am not going to be like you, right? You are toxic, but I'm not going to be toxic. I refuse to reflect back what you did, i.e. to become what you are, right? Because that's what happens when you reflect back, you become them, right? You become as toxic as they are, right? So forgiveness is really the decision not to allow the pain to become toxic in your body. It's not to allow the pain to make you into a bad person yourself. Yes, this happened to me. Yes, I'm suffering. Yes, this hurts. But it doesn't mean that I have to become like you now. It doesn't mean that I'm going to now become vengeful and hateful. I choose to not allow the pain to become toxic within me, right? So what does that look like concretely? Let me give you practical advice how to do this, because some of us are thinking, yeah, right. How does that work? You know, like, okay, I don't want to be toxic, but I feel toxic, right? It's like, it just happens, right? I mean, someone offends you and you don't choose. It just bubbles up, all the toxicity. So how do you deal with it practically? So I will tell you how I went through a long process of forgiveness for someone who betrayed me very deeply. It took me a year, but I got through it. This is what I would do. That person really, really did me wrong. We cut off relationship, and then every minute I would think about that person and what they did. Literally the whole day, that person was in my head, reminding me of what they did. So what I would do concretely, each time it would come, the thought, and it was always a nasty thought about, yeah, they're so immature, and yeah, they're so this, and they're so that, and whatever, right? I was full of insults for that person. I would basically tell the thought, I want you to go. I want to feel love, not hatred. Like, I would say it out loud. I would be in the subway and my lips would be, right? People would be thinking she's one of those, right? Every time the thought would come, I'd be like, I don't want to feel hateful. Deep breath, I want to feel love, right? Thought 2 minutes later, thought comes back. I don't want to be hateful. I choose love. 5 minutes later, same thought. Again, I was in the train now. I don't want to be hateful. So for a whole 2 weeks, I did this. Basically, every 2 minutes, I had to sit there and be like, I don't want to be hateful. Next, third week, the thoughts started to come less often. It was very interesting. They would come maybe 4 or 5 times a day. And each time I would be like, okay, I don't want to be hateful. At the end of a month or so, thought would come twice a day or so. Until one day I had a whole day not thinking about this person at all. And when I thought about them, I started to think differently. Like, oh, I get it, you know, this is why they did that, this is why they did. I was more compassionate. So it worked. So I don't know how it worked, because honestly, it's kind of like magic, the way it eventually worked, but just the choice and the discipline of, this is a cleansing, hygiene of the mind, right? We have hygiene of the body, we take showers, we brush our teeth. We need to go also learn hygiene of the mind, right? How do I cleanse my mind from these nasty thoughts I have about this person? By the way, you can have also nasty thoughts about yourself. Oh yeah, you're such a loser, you're such an idiot. You can do the same maybe. No, I refuse to hate myself. I choose love. Whatever. But really, we are really completely enslaved by these negative thoughts, right, about other people often. And it's very important to really discipline ourselves. And this was just a simple thing I did. Like I would just will. I don't want this, I want that. I don't want this, I want that. And it actually worked. This is forgiveness, right? And at the end of it, I was completely cleansed. My heart was new, my heart was open, I was ready, right, for anything that would come my way. I wasn't closed, I wasn't resentful, I didn't have a bunch of baggage. You know how you come into the next relationship with all this baggage? This is how you avoid the baggage. Like Beyonce's song, right? To the left. You do that with your mind. To the left, right? So you can see how forgiveness is not about the other at all. It's not for them you're doing this. Even they don't deserve it. You do it, why? For you. You see what I'm saying? Many of us are like, I'm not forgiving them because, you know, they did the unforgivable, or they don't deserve to be. They didn't ask for my forgiveness. Why are you keeping all this toxicity inside of you? For you, you forgive, right? That's number one. Now, number two, you also forgive for the other. Something happens to the other. Does anybody know what happens when you do this process? Does anybody know what is happening? Even though they're not in contact with you, something is shifting in their lives. Does anybody know what it is? This one is a little more metaphysical. So, very good. You read my mind. I was going to say exactly that. All of you familiar with karma? Right? You do something bad, eventually something bad gonna. What's that song by? What's that face? This guy who was dating Britney Spears. Come on, help me out. He has the name of a famous boots.
Oh, wait.
Yes.
Goes around, comes around?
Yes.
Okay.
What goes around comes around. You know, a really nice song. He's a great singer. He's a really good musician, right? What goes around comes around. That song, karma, right? And I think in that song, he's wishing that on somebody who did him wrong, right? So we do that too, right? And it's true. Whenever you do something bad, right, eventually what goes around comes around, right? What happens when you forgive to that cycle? Do you know what happens?
Good things come your way.
The what?
Good things come your way.
Not your way. I'm talking about the other. Also, yes, but what are you doing to that other person's karma when you're forgiving them? Yes. You have the power. Yes. Did you know that you have the power to wash their slate clean, to interrupt their karma so that they don't have to reap the negative consequences, right, of what they did to you? I know it would be nice. I know, we forgive, but what comes around comes around. So we forgive, but we still wish, that a little bit of suffering will come on them. Actually, the true forgiveness, when you do it well, something happens on the metaphysical level where you are wiping their slate clean and they are not going to suffer the consequences for the wrong they did to you. That's how deep forgiveness goes on the level of existence. You have the power to interrupt someone's karma, to wipe their slate clean. So this is a beautiful gesture you're actually doing. Not that you want to do it. Right? I get it. I don't want to do it, right? But it automatically happens when you do this process, right? Now, there's a third beneficiary of your act of forgiveness. Anybody know what is the third thing that benefits from you doing this process of detoxification? There's one third big being. Yes? Oh, that's true. The next person you meet, yes, no, it's true. I hadn't thought of that, but you're right. The next person you come to, right now, you're clear. You're not seeing everything that they're doing in the light of, right? So they come home at 11 p.m. and you're like, you cheater, right? Immediately blaming them because you were cheated on last time by somebody who came home at 11 p.m., right? So yes, no, you're right. Yes, that's true. The next person is also beneficiary of this, but there's one big entity that it benefits from this. Anybody know what that is? Yes. Huh? That's you. That's for you still. Yes, I'm talking about something bigger than you, me, bigger than the third person, something cosmic. No. I mean, maybe God. I haven't thought of it. If God, huh?
Your soul.
Your soul for sure. That's you,
Okay.
right? I'm talking, yes, stop. That's you still, right? I'm talking here about the world. You are cleansing the world. Imagine someone does you wrong and you do wrong back, and then they do wrong to someone because you did them wrong, and then you do wrong to someone else because you've been wronged, right? The moment you absorb it, carry, nasa, it stops with you. You don't perpetuate the toxicity. This is the problem with us. Someone does me wrong, I'm going to do you wrong, and then they're going to do them wrong, and they're going to do them wrong, right? That's we transmit the evil, right? Once you forgive, it stops with you. You have interrupted a potentially huge snowballing effect, right, of evil. And you are, in a way, cleansing the world also. You're cleansing yourself, cleansing your beloved, I mean your ex-beloved, sorry. You're cleansing future beloved, relationship with a few, and you're cleansing the world, right? It's such a powerful tool. And it's not hard to do. It just takes practice and diligence and discipline, right? It's not hard to say out loud, I don't want to feel hateful. I want to, you will notice when you do that, you don't want to say it. Like I would be like, like I knew I wanted to say it, but deep part of me didn't. Part of me was like, I love hating this person right now. It feels so good. Like it's like a nice bubble bath of hatred, right? So it actually takes a little bit of effort to be like, deep breath. I don't want to be hateful. I want to love, right? So, but it's not a rocket science. If you just do it over and over again, every time the thought comes, you lift it up. You say, I don't want this thought. I release this thought. I want to feel love. Thought comes again. You continue. You go like this all day long. You can do it even with your hands in the subway, so people really think you're crazy. But it's really such a powerful practice of purification of yourself, purification of the other, purification of the world, right? And the biggest beneficiary of this practice is you, right? We should never be afraid of being hurt. The pain will never damage us. Pain goes away completely after a while, right? But the toxicity can stay for decades. You can stay close-hearted. You can stay resentful for decades and be unable to move on in your next relationship and just be accumulating the same relationship over and over again with different people, right? So it's really you. The pain will never damage you. We should never be afraid of pain. And Rumi says it. Don't be afraid of pain. What are you afraid of pain for, right? What we should really be afraid is the damage that we create through the way we react to the pain. We are the ones who decide whether we will have a toxic reaction or a purification reaction, right, to the pain. We decide. Now we go back to Rumi and you see very clearly, oops, sorry, so over time. I'm done. Just go back to the passage. Be clear like a mirror, reflecting nothing. Do you see how that has to do with forgiveness? That's the bottom line, right? Be clear like a mirror. Don't reflect. Be perfectly clear. Zor, right? Okay, good. Thank you, guys. Next time we start Kant, you know the whole business you have to do. Listen to the introduction lecture, do the audio question, do the reading assignment. Kant is not going to be fun. I'm just warning you, it's not going to be fun. Make sure you listen to the audio before you get in the reading or it's going to be tough. Okay, I'll stop.